Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Monday, October 28th, 2019. Okay, so while I can't imagine that my nobody self upset people, I did say something not meant to be offensive, but probably was. After, just getting crushed by Oko decks for like a straight hour on Arena, I tweeted out something along the lines of, I have a great deal of respect for, the players that WotC snapped up for the play design team, but how the shit could y'all let this happen? Ogak, Oko, Nissa, like, what the hell, guys? And one, I do have actually a lot of respect for the likes of, Michael Majors and Melissa De Tora and JD Klomperens, Tom Ross. They're all players that I followed as players before they went to work for play design, so I do have a lot of respect for them. And honestly, we really don't know how much control the play design team has. So, you can't really blame them for things. We have had some misfires lately. Things have been kind of rough since Kaladesh, really. But I think there's a reason for it. So, based on, things I have heard other people say, no actual research of my own, it seems like we had a massive influx of organized play players in the cons era. Fetch lands were printed into standard, everybody wanted them. Finally they're printing these great, powerful cards into standard, and, decreasing the price of modern in the process, and even legacy a bit. Though, honestly, until they can reprint the dual lands. Yeah, that's where that's at. So, we had this massive influx of players, and then the numbers started dropping off again. I mean, they've been complaining for the last couple of years that tournament attendance is down as far as GPs are concerned. And, that's why prices had to go up. And so they hit like max saturation of players, and now we're in kind of a player recession, and have been pretty much since the cons era. And the other thing is, every time you see preview season start for a standard set, it's just everybody, this set's awful. Like, the collective salt mine that is the Magic community, and, like, myself included, is, there's nothing playable outside of standard in this, and, even I said about Eldraine, I really liked the flavor of it. There were a couple cards I was pretty excited about, but I really didn't know how constructed playable any of this set was. Oko, come on. I don't know how I missed that jerk. So you have players constantly complaining about, like, standard sets are so late, or so awful anymore. They're just bad. Bad. And they have been kind of trying to depower standard for, a few years now. Like, you compare Shadows over Innistrad to the original Innistrad, like, compare the Olivia Voldarens, and, the power level of these cards is very different. We haven't seen, these high-level cards until recently. We're starting to see more of it. Now, Kaladesh itself was... the biggest problem with Kaladesh is they introduced this new cost mechanic. It was a finite resource that you had to generate through playing cards, but there were so many cards that had an incidental tick to this pool, and there is no way to negatively interact with your opponent's energy pool. There's no way to drain energy from an opponent. So that's why these energy decks got so crazy. It's like, okay, so you killed my first Thopter engineer. It's fine. I'll just play another one. And now I have more energy and can make more Thopters. Wah, ha, 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 ha. And really, the conversion rate for a lot of these things, based on the energy you got from that card, didn't look great. Like, if you equated energy to mana, a lot of these effects were really expensive. But then when you had the... Oh, man. What was that green card? It got banned. It was like one of the 2 cards they banned to kind of settle down Temur energy. Attune with Aether. Go get a basic and get incidental energy. It has nothing to do with the effect you're doing right now. You're not using that energy for this land. So it was essentially free energy. Also got to, help you fix your mana. What other ones? Like, just kind of had incidental energy. And then you had so many cards that you could spend that energy to do something okay with. The scale ranged from, this is fine, to, this is kind of busted. And there was no way to siphon energy off of your opponent. And, they really missed a big, flavorful opportunity there with, like, the Aether Vampires. But that was the major problem in Kaladesh. Like, yeah, the Vehicles deck was good. But, I really don't think the Smuggler's Capture ban did much to hinder that deck. Went to hinder that deck, ban Gideon Ally of Zendikar. I was actually really miffed about the Smuggler's Capture ban at the time, because I had just gotten my playset so I could play Black Red Madness. I wasn't even doing the most busted thing you could be doing with Smuggler's Capture, but I was having fun with my Black Red Madness deck, and they took it away. We won't rehash all that, though. You can go back a couple years and listen to that episode. So yeah, most of the problem with Kaladesh is that this energy mechanic had a little bit of flaw. But I could kind of excuse that because I could see how it was an unforeseen flaw. Was the Thopter... Was it Whirler Road? No. It was the Thopter Engineer, wasn't it? I don't know. The red-blue card, it gave you, like, 3 energy when it came in. You could spend 3 energy to get a 1/1 Thopter. Something like that. So, again, if you're looking at energy in the same terms as mana, that's a really crap conversion rate. If you had to tap 3 lands for that ability, nobody would play that card. But energy was different. And Magic players did what Magic players do and busted the mechanic wide open. That's... The high-level players are always looking for what the most busted thing you can be doing in Standard is. Because that's how they win games. And I'm not saying that it's like, oh, your deck won the game for you. No, a lot of these decks were high skill level. Like, Temur Energy was very high skill level. I raffle stomped many opponents playing that deck that didn't know the lines as well. So, Kaladesh, there ended up being a crap ton of cards in that era that got banned. It was like 6 at once in Standard, which was, a lot. And since, I'd say in the last, year, kind of since Dominaria, I guess, now we've seen them kind of swinging the pendulum in the other direction, only slightly, though. get a handful of cards in each set that it's like, what? You know, like we had Tefable, or Big Teferi, for those of you not willing to make Teferi into a Pokemon. That card was insanely impressive. Your deck had to have a way to deal with him, or you lost. Nexus of Fate. Nissa, Who Shakes the World, is pretty BA. But she's also, 5 or 6 mana to get on the board. So, you'd think that would be a hindrance. Except you gave us all this nice ramp. And then, Gilded Goose. Boo pulled one of those at the pre-release, and she was all excited. I was like, that card's stupid. Literally stupid. I'd rather have a Llanowar Elves. But we all know, I'm not so great at gauging cards. Turns out that card's awesome. And enables the turn 2 Oko, which is even worse than a turn 3 Oko, which is still pretty bad. Hogak was close to being balanced. Cost reduction mechanics are inherently powerful. And they combine 2 cost reduction mechanics. But Delve, I would say, is one of the less powerful because you pretty much get one shot. When I play against Death Shadow with humans, if there's a Gurmag Angler on the board and a Death Shadow, and I'm playing a Reflector Mage, I'm hitting the Gurmag Angler, because that will at least buy me some time before they can recast it. Whereas Death Shadow, once the Reflector Mage block expires, they can easily replay it. Gurmag Angler, they've got to either get all the lands on the battlefield, and then they're taking a whole turn off to do it, or refill the graveyard some. So, I can see how maybe this card was looked at and you still need a lot of resources to get him out, right? That card had a pretty high mana cost. I think the thing that took it from a very good Magic card to straight up broken was the cast from graveyard. Because now the only way you can really deal with it for good, that particular copy, is exile. You can't destroy it, even though it's not indestructible. Your destroy effect just means that they're just going to cast it back out. Also, it forces you to be a little more careful with your mill. You know, imagine if Hollow One was, the same cast ability from the graveyard. So it's okay, so this was Hollow One, 5 mana, but costs 2 less for each card you've discarded that turn, I think. And the reason the Hollow One decks, they sprouted up for a second, and they were cute and they were fun, but they were like any other high variance deck that, yeah, you got to live the dream of 3 Hollow Ones on turn 1, 0.01% of the time. More often than not, I would assume. I didn't play the deck. I played against it, but I didn't play it. You end up with just a bunch of Hollow Ones in your graveyard going, damn it. So imagine, you can either cast it from your hand or the graveyard under the same terms. That deck would have been insane. It would have been insanely broken. Because, now those Burning Inquiries and Goblin Lores, they're fine. You don't have to, flip the cards up all tense, oh man, you got my Hollow Ones. You're okay, you got my Hollow Ones, so now I have a full grip and get to put the Hollow Ones into the battlefield. Yay! So, I think the cast from the graveyard, Trample didn't help things, but I think it was really the cast from the graveyard that took that card from being just a very good Magic card for, the Dredge strategy into or, well, for graveyard decks, into being, like, straight up busted and oppressive. So as frustrated as I am with cards like Oko and Baby Teferi, they're a symptom of WotC trying to push the envelope and trying to push the boundaries, which they have to do. The game's 25 years old. Well, 26 now. You know, they have to get out of that safe spot and keep trying new things. Otherwise, you end up in a situation where you're essentially playing the same standard deck every format. You just have to buy new cards. But they're all the same as the cards you played in the last standard format, just with different names. Or they don't change the names, and then card sales fall like a stone. They're just reprinting things every set. Everybody just hoards their collection, and it's like, alright, every standard, I got something. So they have to keep coming up with new cards. It was like 5 or 6 years ago, I think somebody had said that there were over 20,000 unique named cards in the game of Magic. Well, and it's been years since then, and we've had so much come out since then. So the burden to continue to keep the game growing and evolving and feeling new and exciting and not getting stale is getting harder and harder to meet. So they have to push these boundaries, and sometimes the boundary just doesn't have as much flex as you thought it did. Sometimes you push against that boundary and it snaps like a twig. And in the cases where that happens, they need to be judicious with bannings. Now, the unfortunate thing is, like, you look at the price tag on Oko right now, how many people are going to be out hundreds of dollars in the next, if he gets hit with the next BNR? It's going to be a fair amount of players. So they have to balance that, because that's, you know, one of those things. If there becomes a situation where people are losing too much money buying into these high-power cards just to have them banned, you're going to destroy the consumer confidence in the game. So this is a big, multifaceted problem. So it's easy for players for us to sit and bitch and be like, how did you let this happen? Now, I mean, Oko is particularly egregious. I really want to believe that +1 that permanently turns something into an elk, like, something got messed up with the text there, and it was, like, shoehorned in at the last minute, so nobody really took the time to think it out. Like, maybe they were only supposed to be an elk until end of turn. Even then, that still shouldn't be a plus, in my opinion, on a 3 CMC Planeswalker that starts with that high loyalty. Or maybe it was supposed to be minus, and that just, you know, typo happened and nobody caught it. Because, honestly, the second ability on the Royal Scions also feels like it should be a minus. I was slowing down for you, and you turned your turn signal off. I don't know what you're doing now. So, yeah, I want to see Oko banned, and I want to see Oko banned in all formats. I don't want to see them play around with it and take half measures. Like, that card, 5 of the top 8 decks in the Modern Open this weekend were Oko. Now, granted, it was the worst deck, which was already a powerful shell, that they were like, can we make green happen? Yeah? Cool. Let's just put Oko in here. But it's even starting to make waves in Legacy and Vintage, and it's gonna make Pioneer, it's already dampening the excitement for Pioneer, because now you can't even just wait for it to rotate. You know, if you're into playing Pioneer. So I think it needs banned, and needs banned in most, if not all, formats. Like, that card is pretty crazy. It's hard to imagine that was looked at in that incarnation, as it was printed and put in packs by, you know, so many people, and everybody went, yeah, this seems fine. I do have to agree with Jess Estefan, though. They can't do anything about it until after the Mythic Championship. And they'd be kind of silly to announce that they're doing anything about it before the Mythic Championship, because it's going to kill their viewership on it. I mean, how many people would have watched the last Mythic Championship if they knew Field of the Dead was getting banned? Like, we all suspected it was happening, but if they knew for sure, you know, now, you know, these players are doing the best thing they can be doing in Standard, and at that time it was Field of the Dead. Nobody wants to turn your 2/2 zombie into a 3/3 elk. I mean, I guess Golos, you turn that guy into a 3/3. But I suspect, I mean, calling it as I see it, I think they're probably going to wait until Theros comes out to see if Theros answers it. And if it doesn't, I think that's when we're going to possibly see some action on it. But, I mean, I've never been a big fan of the Planeswalker cards in general. It's a very old mentality, you know, that this isn't the game I grew up with. But these 3-mana Planeswalkers are... They have a power rating of 1 or 0. 0 being Tibalt, and 1 being broken. Like, Baby Teferi is pretty impressive too, but even, like, if you look at that template, Baby Teferi to bounce a creature, and you get to draw a card. So a bonus was added to defending himself. It takes him down to 1 loyalty, making him real easy to pick off. You don't even have to dedicate, like, that much to trying to kill him. You got 1/1/1 flyer, there you go. And you can still shove the rest of the damage at face. A shock takes him down. So, you know, and then when you look at Oko, and the big thing is it's permanent. You know, if it was until end of turn, I might be able to buy the, okay, I still think that's a little powerful on a +1 for a Planeswalker that's that cheap, that starts with that much loyalty. But I could more understand why this card got the go-ahead, and people are like, no, that should be fine. But when every turn you're either turning one of your useless artifacts into a 3/3 elk to give yourself better defense, or turning your opponent's best beater into a 3/3 elk and removing all of its text, and they just stay that way. Like, you don't have to reinvest the activation every turn. Like, oh, well, I gotta keep that questing beast pinned down, so I guess I'm gonna have to plus on that. I can't afford to minus. But, no, it's just like, oh, your questing beast is now an elk for as long as it remains on the battlefield. Oh, cool. Awesome. So, I meant no disrespect to the players that got scooped up by WotC for the play design team, and I did delete the tweets because I was like, yeah, right, I can see how that may have been unkind. kind of nobody, but at the same time, you know, it's still putting words out there. It doesn't matter how big my audience is. But the game has to evolve or it's going to die. And again, sometimes when they push the boundaries, they push them just a little too hard. In Oko's case, they took a bulldozer. Like, that card is insanely powerful. Like, that's some pre-mending shit right there. I mean, I can definitely remember when Modern Horizons was being previewed and Hogak got previewed. You know, getting in heated discussions with people in different forums, you know, who were like, yeah, Hogak's stupid. Nobody's ever going to play that. That's not going to see constructive play. And, you know, husband and I, as soon as it was previewed, both looked at it and went, good God, what are they doing? Why would you do that? It's like, you know, Urza, I think, is a very strong card. And, yeah, there happen to be good shells for him to go into. But I don't think that card's broken. I think it's just very strong. You know, there were a bunch of cards in Modern Horizons that, you know, weren't great. There were a bunch of cards that were pretty good. And there were a couple standouts that were, you know, incredibly good. Hogak went, you know, tipped the scale from very good to broken, but I think everything else from that set's pretty fine. There are plenty of ways to deal with these things. I mean, everything seems more busted in a blue deck, because it's like, oh yeah, you can totally turn on Revolt and Fatal Push Urza, so long as they don't have a counterspell. But that's where it's at. That's all I got to say on it, I guess. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. I've been digging on getting all these episodes in. I think tomorrow I'm going to try to talk about the London Mulligan a little more, and with an eye for a thread Ari Lax started today on Twitter. But again, as always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.